What up, Whisper Nation? Big Travy here. As we advertised, we're going live with Stepmom Lauren discussing our too early PPR rankings, the Fantasy Whispers rankings, and then Stepmom Lauren is going to go ahead and let us know what she thinks of those rankings and talk us a little bit off the ledge, maybe. So we'll wait for her to jump on here. But we're going to be talking that. As always, if you like our content, go over to our YouTube channel, subscribe to that channel. The link is in our bio. You guys can check us out there. We would appreciate the subscribe. We know you would appreciate the content. And it looks like Stepmom Lauren has joined us. So we're going with her now. Really?
Hey!
There she is.
Oh, look, half my head's cut off. Hold on. Let me adjust. I need to adjust. There we go. Hey.
The full package. We love it.
Hi.
Welcome back.
I missed you guys.
I know. We missed you. Whisper Nation missed you. What's going on?
Oh, my gosh. It's been so crazy busy. It's been nuts. I've had to find my place of zen. I've needed to harness my chi.
We love it.
It's been crazy. It's been crazy.
Did you
I'm getting
find
stuff
yourself?
ready. I did.
Did you go to like a sweat lodge or do some ayahuasca?
I sweated out the bad humors. I was a little terrified by what I found, and I was like, "Whoa, we need to have a come to Jesus meet." I'm just kidding. I'm whatever. No, it's just been nuts. And then I'm getting all this stuff ready for the regular season coming up because it's almost football. Like football is almost here. I can almost smell the sweaty jerseys. Which is not an aroma I would like to smell, but I can't wait to see.
It's like one of those smells that's really bad, but it brings you to such a happy place. You just gut
it
out.
Yeah, and scent is actually the mostly close tied to emotion and memory.
That is true.
I know.
All right,
Stepmom
Lauren, besides schooling us on some scents and how that affects the mind, how have you been recently affecting the mind of the fantasy football nation out there? You recently wrote an article for the fantasy footballers. You want to talk about that one a little bit?
Well, it was a little spicy. I guess my player profile articles for the fantasy footballers are generally a little controversial. And I know. So
that's good.
There was a lot of feedback from my very first player profile, which was over David Johnson. And now that's come to fruition because Kyler Murray's there. So I mean, come on. Now his ADP is skyrocketing. Boo-hoo. That makes me sad. My last one, most recent article is on Kenyon. I swear to God, I don't write like that in my articles. I try to be a little bit more professional. Not really. I'm kind of funny, but I think I am. Who knows?
You're way funny. Yeah. We'll keep telling you're funny, too. So
I know. Then I'll just be that way because I like it. That was about Kenyon Drake and how I think that he really has potential to explode in this offense. And I really want to put a caveat on the word potential because I put it in my article. You guys should go read it.
Nice teaser. Nice
It's
teaser.
on the fantasy football.
She's a pro. She's a pro, guys. And, of course, you can always follow her on all of her social platforms at Stepmom Lauren. She's got links to those articles there as well. And she'll be doing articles for us. She has an article up on our website as well. So that's at the fantasywhispers.com. So you can check that out there. So without further ado, we're talking our way too early PPR running back rankings. We're going to go 10 through 1. Real quickly, no need to dive too much into this. We know this is going to change around. We know it's only May. So we're going to go through a lot of this. And I think I lost Stepmom Lauren. She took off on us.
I'm here. I just know who's at number 10.
Oh, all right. Well, we'll go ahead and start it off. Our number 10 consensus ranking between Johnny and I is Joe Mixon coming in. And there she is with her patented frowny face devil emoji. She is not happy with this ranking. But I just got to talk about Joe Mixon a little bit. Last year he finished as the PPR number 10 running back, so right about where we have him ranked, only playing in 14 games. This is an offense that has seen their offensive line get dedicated to over the last 2 years. Obviously, they had a couple big free agents from Buffalo last year that came over, and then they also drafted Jonah Taylor in the first round out of Alabama. So that's an offensive tackle there. I got to like what Mixon's bringing to the table. His receiving ability has increased each year. I like what he brings to the table, but I understand that you don't, Stepmom Lauren. So why don't you dive in before I go a little further? Dive into why you're not feeling Joe Mixon this year.
He's garbage.
Wow. Hope he's not watching right now.
I have one word for the M word that is the RB1 for the Bengals, and that's straight up garbage. And that's only a personal thing, guys, because I just don't like him as a human being. And that is obviously not the best draft strategy to have going into it. But you know what? In my opinion, there are plenty other good running backs that I want to target besides him. I personally don't like him. Fantasy pros, though, just to take some personal stuff out of this, but, you know, whatever. So Fantasy Pros has him ranked in standard 13th, half PPR 15th, and then in full PPR at 17th. I think that's where he needs to be, outside of the top 10. And one of the reasons I bring up some of his character is I just don't think that he is a player that has shown personal growth as a human being. That's just me, though. That is literally just me. Everyone can disagree with me if you want. I dislike the man. If he finishes in the top 10, sorry, not sorry. Well, I will not draft him. I won't touch him. I also don't like the Bengals offense, and I understand with Zach Taylor coming in, you know, the Sean McVay, the disciple that he is of that offense. I get it, but I think if he is ever going to succeed in this offense, which is a big, huge if, it's going to be after they kind of work out a few kinks with a brand new head coach, which I don't think has ever called any offensive plays. If I'm wrong, I could be mixing that up with another head coach. I'm not sure. So anyway, I just don't see it this year.
No, you're right there on Zach Taylor. And I think you're kind of right in your strategy of you don't like the guy. And you said earlier, maybe that's not the right strategy. Listen, we play fantasy football first and foremost for what? To have fun. And if you can't have fun drafting a guy, you shouldn't be drafting him. And listen, when we're in this top 10 and especially 10 through 15, you're going to be splitting hairs on guys. So if you don't like a guy, then pick the next best option or the option ahead that you think. And so I have no qualms with you there. I just wanted to say that I think they are definitely in a spot to give him more work, and they're definitely in a spot where a head coach comes from a tree of using one guy and getting him involved in the passing game. So I think that is the direction they'll go. So you could probably draft with confidence if you can look past some of his off-the-field stuff like Stepmom Lauren was talking about. The Fantasy Football Show has chimed in here. Says their OC and head coach are QB coaches with no head coach experience, and Andy Dalton is the guy these QB coaches, right?
I know.
Hard pass, he says. He's with you there.
I agree with you
there. All right, so he also said earlier, though, that if we brought up Todd Gurley, he'd be leaving, and that is our number 9 running back here, Todd Gurley. We don't have to spend too much time on this, only because there's not a lot of information out. Like, what do we know? That he's limping, that he has arthritis. The Rams have been very weird about what they're reporting with Todd Gurley. And there we go. Fantasy Football Show says, peace out.
The thing with Todd Gurley for me is he is such a physical player. He is a talented running back. It's kind of hard not to have him in the top 10. Again, it just depends on your own personal opinion. Like for me with Joe Mixon, I don't even like saying the man's name. So if you shy away from Todd Gurley, that makes total sense to me. And let's say you can't help yourself. You just absolutely have to draft Todd Gurley for whatever reasons that you have to do so. You have to be prepared to take Darrell Henderson, and you might have to be prepared to reach for him. That is what scares me so much about Todd Gurley this year and moving forward. I think his best years may be behind him. Hopefully not, because nobody ever wants to wish ill will on a player, of course, but there are going to be issues drafting him, and you're going to have to reach for Darrell Henderson if you want to go ahead and make that choice.
I love what you put there. It's about your own personal risk, how risk adverse you are, your own risk mitigation factor that you're going to put in. It's really about the numbers being all against Todd Gurley, and the numbers are, as far as a career length as a running back, as far as mileage on those legs, as far as arthritis not being a curable thing. Nobody gets cured of arthritis. It is lingering. So if the Rams weren't lying about that, and this is not something, it's going to be a pain management issue. And we saw the Rams move up in the NFL draft to draft Darrell Henderson. So maybe you have to move up as a fantasy owner, as Stepmom Lauren suggests, and get Darrell Henderson if you're drafting Todd Gurley.
Yeah, at his ADP where he's going right now, which I believe is around the 107. Am I right or wrong
Yeah,
there?
you're right about there.
There are other options that you can definitely take a look at that position instead of taking Todd Gurley. You know,
Agreed,
hopefully we're
yeah.
wrong. I don't know, but
and that's the guys we're going to get into right now. Is there's a jumbled mix there, and we just kind of split hairs on these rankings to get it in here in May, but. There's a jumbled mess of guys here, and we're actually seeing a good value of 10, 12 guys in this first round that are really good studs, and we're going to go to the next guy, although I did not love the news that came out today with the Jets, but LeVeon Bell is our number 8 ranked running back, and essentially the Jets, in a shocking move after spending over $100 million in free agency on only 4 free agents, after getting one of the best players in the NFL draft, they have fired their GM and their interim GM is going to be their head coach, Adam Gase. So what is going on here? Can you explain why this guy continues to get a head coaching gig and now he's going to get a GM? Before you know it, he's going to own the Jets, I guess?
I know. I don't understand. And I didn't understand Adam Gase when he was in Miami. And that's one of the, not one, but that is a little tidbit that I throw out in my Kenyon Drake article because Gase is gone. But this really has repercussions, in my humble opinion, on Le'Veon Bell. I mean, it's before he could literally end up being like wide receiver. He probably could for the Jets. Anyway, the running back 1, or he could end up as the running back 22. You know, we just don't know with Adam Gase what he wants to do with his offense, and now he is like Jerry Jonesing the Jets. I that whole situation terrifies me. I don't even know, but is it scary enough to not draft him? I don't know. For me, yes.
I'm gonna have to see. Yeah, and you were trying to convince me of this when he first went to the Jets. We talked a little bit, and it's funny that we're talking about it now because now I think I may have flipped. Just today, I was ready to come on this show and tell you why. Adam Gase has all these numbers to prove that he has given running backs when they've been the running back ones in his offense before, like when he was with Chicago and Denver. You look at C.J. Anderson, you look at Noshawn Moreno, Matt Forte. These are guys that were top 12 running backs in PPR. But now I come on today, and we've got news coming out of New York that Adam Gase never even wanted Le'Veon Bell.
I know.
And he says that he would have never spent that money on a running back. If you're getting those words a year after what he did to Kenyon Drake and Kenyon Drake owners, it's not a pretty sight. And
I feel like I have my ESPN is kicking in, and yes, I did that on purpose. My ESPN is kicking in here because Jason Moore told me literally when I submitted my article for the Fantasy Footballers, he had just written Kenyon Drake's name on like the whiteboard of running backs that they were going to be discussing in their upcoming podcast.
Running backs.
Yeah, and then talking about Adam Gase in relation to Kenyon Drake, and now we have this. Literally, I just published this article, and now we have this information on Adam Gase. It's like all of the stars and this place of zen and peace I found is telling me.
Hey, can you give me the address to that?
I
Zen
will.
Spot?
It's out in the boonies. I got a Google pin drop for you.
Thank you.
It's hard to find.
Yeah. Well, I mean, hard to find maybe Le'Veon Bell in that backfield right
Sadly.
Now because, we'll see. Like I said, I don't want to jump to conclusions in May, and I want to see what happens with this backfield because I don't know if the source that said this about Gase not wanting Bell is that credible, but, I mean, it kind of makes sense if they're firing the GM ahead of giving Gase more power. Well,
Just
moving on.
Go ahead.
I'm
going to interrupt you here, too. Big shout out to my husband, Jeff, who's watching. Hi, honey.
Oh, yeah.
And also my buddy Mike and anyone else that I miss. I'm just kind of seeing these as they scroll through. So, hi, guys. I see you. Thank you for watching.
Mr. Stepmom
My husband,
Lauren.
you're forced to. I'm just kidding. He's so supportive.
We'll take it. We'll take the extra follower.
I like it.
So moving on from Bell to the guy that replaced Le'Veon Bell in Pittsburgh, we're moving on to James Conner. There were periods of time last year where you could say James Conner was a better running back for the Steelers than Le'Veon Bell had ever been, just in that brief spit of time. Obviously, it's a small sample size, so we don't want to go crazy on that. But then he gets hurt towards the end of last year. Jalen Samuels comes in, and the concern now is that, the Steelers have done some weird things, and bringing in Jalen Samuels, old running back coach from college, even though this James Conner is their hometown guy. He was used with the same usage as Le'Veon Bell, but is that why he got hurt? Is that what they're concerned about? I talked about on a recent podcast, which the link you can get in our bio. I talked about how, the Pittsburgh Steelers may be looking to be more innovative, and they think that's the reason why they are slipping back. And so in doing so, they might move to a multiple running back system for the first time in their history. I tend to lean on history, and that shows that Mike Tomlin loves one guy. So we're just going to have to go here. I noticed, though, you're not the biggest fan of James Conner. Can you tell the Whisper Nation why?
It's not that I'm not a fan of James Conner. I actually do like James Conner, but I don't know what it is. I think it's where he's going early in the first round. If he dropped way later in the first round, and let's say that I already had a really great keeper like Zeke or Saquon Barkley or even a really stud wide receiver, then I would take him if he was going a little bit later, and he might in your drafts.
Right.
So don't be afraid to go for him. And I do like him at 7 because I think he does have a lot of potential here. So I don't disagree with where you have him ranked. I just think at that position, I think there are better studs that you can get that are a little bit safer, just for the exact reasons that you brought up, because they are kind of developing Jalen Samuels a little bit. And I don't necessarily think it's to usurp the role of James Conner. I think it's to be a nice complementary role. Like you said, let's switch some things up. I don't think that you're going to turn like a horse into a camel overnight and suddenly Pittsburgh is going to have this running back by committee idea. I don't think that's what it is. But for me personally, I am more of okay, if I'm going to draft James Conner, same situation with Todd Gurley and Darrell Henderson, I do want to take a look at picking up Jalen Samuels as well, just to be on the safe side.
Yeah, I mean, James Conner getting 270 touches in 13 games, we saw what they wanted to do with him, and then it just kind of fell off when he got hurt. And even Jalen Samuels got tremendous work when he came in.
Yep.
A lot of people are staying away from Conner, which could mean that he ends up falling from that 107, 106 mark. And if he's there at the back of your first round, that's kind of the value you're looking at. Like if you're taking James Conner over your boy Joe Mixon, right? That's the situation we're at.
Oh, in a heartbeat, I would take Conner over Mixon.
So
I would take my dog in my draft over Joe Mixon.
Well, I've seen your dog, and he's a cutie. So
he's so cute.
So moving on to one of your favorite guys, from not one of your favorites to one of your favorites, David Johnson, DJ. This is Johnny's boy coming from Phoenix, Arizona. The Arizona Cardinals have done a lot here, drafted Kyler Murray, drafted a bunch of weapons on offense, committed to a coach who is in the past, since 2014, has given his running backs the 6th most receptions and targets and receiving yards from the running back position in the NCAA. So Cliff Kingsbury comes to town, and yet David Johnson began this offseason sitting at the back end of the first round. Well, no surprise, I should say. He's creeping back up in our rankings, and we've got him here at 6. You think we're too low on him, but if you keep screaming about him, he's going to get too high for us to even want to draft.
Whatever. Don't you judge me. Don't you judge me. Did you not read my article? He needs to be in the top 5. That's just my own thing.
I think it just speaks to what we're talking about at the top of the show here. Tons and tons of talent in this first round. Yes. And so you're going to be splitting hairs, and we're going to try and dive through all the little intricacies with you this offseason. That's what we're going to try and do. But I love David Johnson where he's at. Do you see any kind of scenario where he ends up as that RB10 situation that he was last year? Or do you, because maybe the offense gets into a point where they're not running the ball as well, or they have those growing pains, those learning struggles with Cliff Kingsbury?
I mean, I don't know if Cliff Kingsbury suddenly decides to do his best impression of, like, let's say Adam Gase or Mike McCoy, then I guess maybe, but it would take something pretty extreme to not land him in this top 10 and pretty high in the top 10. You're talking about the legs of Kyler Murray, and you're talking about the talent of Kyler Murray. I understand that could be a little bit scary for some people wanting to move away from David Johnson and maybe choosing somebody else. I get that, but I really just think that this is David Johnson's year to prove once again that he is able to do what everyone has expected him to do last year, and unfortunately, because of his injury, was unable to do the year before that. But I really don't I say that I don't think there is now, and then watch it happen simply because we talked about it.
No, I
But no,
I
I don't
tend
think
to
there
agree
is.
with you, so I'll share that blame if we end up jinxing him. My thinking is this: they hired and fired Mike McCoy midseason, 2 years in a row being fired in the middle of the season. Um,
Hmm.
Cliff Kingsbury would have to be the most epic, colossal bust of a
Yeah,
head coach
and I don't
in
see
the
that
history of the
happening.
NFL in order for
Hmm.
DJ to regress. And I think he just only goes up from that 9-10 spot that he finished
Hmm.
in last year. And I'm really excited about DJ this year. Also,
Me
really
too.
excited about our next guy out here in Los Angeles, the other LA team, the Los Angeles Chargers, Melvin Gordon, constantly disrespected, constantly talked down on by the fantasy community. Or just people that just don't understand that this guy rolls out of bed with like 20 points in PPR. This guy
It's
is
true.
extremely productive if he plays. Of course, he's had some issues, and he did have the hamstring a couple of times last year. But when Melvin Gordon plays football, you can count on those points in your lineup.
Oh yeah, and exactly. And I'm ashamed to admit this. I'm really ashamed to admit this, but I used to be one of those Melvin Gordon haters.
Hey,
Don't judge me.
no,
Don't
that's
judge
all
me.
right. Come back,
But
come back.
it
We
was
all
only
had
because
our comeback.
I always played against Melvin Gordon. I think that's what it was. I've never owned shares of Melvin Gordon before, so I don't have that kind of bias, for him or firsthand witnessing his talent unless it's crushing me. So then, therefore, I should be all into Melvin Gordon.
Right.
But you know what? He's such a, like you said, he rolls out of bed and he has 20 plus fantasy points. It's insane. In fact, last year he finished within the top 10 in all scoring formats.
Yeah.
That's standard. That's half PPR. That's full PPR. I mean, he's a stud, and yet
Yep.
he is overlooked, which
And
may be very good in your home leagues. If someone just happens to sleep on Melvin Gordon, you should encourage that. Be like, yeah,
yeah.
Melvin Gordon.
Start planting the seeds of doubt in
Just
your draft.
do it. We
Feed
are
them
all about subterfuge here.
the same time that you hand them a beer. Slip
Oh
that Melvin
yeah.
Gordon little line
Throw a
right
shot
there.
of vodka in that beer too, and just
Yeah,
let
there
it
we go.
roll.
Little
Let it roll.
Boilermaker. I love
Yeah,
it.
man.
So 9 out of 12 12 weeks last year, Melvin Gordon was an RB1. We talk about that consistency. Are people just burned, like you said? Had him maybe a little bit last year. I know that playoff run he had kind of burned people. He wasn't available there for people, so we can definitely see that being an issue. So we want to say hi to someone here that's in the comments.
Everyone.
Yeah,
I just
what do we
see
got
people
going on here?
waving, so I'm just saying hi.
Yeah, what's up?
I don't want to
Chase
interrupt
B?
you.
No, we're good.
So I want to be like,
say
hey,
give
what's
him
going
a
on?
shout
So
out
Brad
here.
Schmill, let's go Seahawks. And let's see, Chase B64. What's going on, bro? Hey.
What up?
How you doing?
Hey, bro. Hey.
Hey, bro. Hey.
But there's not much to debate or dissect on Melvin Gordon. He's a stud.
Right.
You guys should be targeting him. And if you guys want to debate this, comment below and let us know. But otherwise,
there's a lot of debate here. I am fascinated to see what people have to say because you're either with him or you're against him. There's very little middle ground when it comes to Melvin Gordon.
Yeah, which is a shock to me because the guy is so consistent.
it is to me too, even though I used to be on the other side of the fence.
Yeah. So moving on to our next guy, who coming into last year there was a lot of parity on. We weren't sure about what was going to happen with him. And that's Christian McCaffrey of the Carolina Panthers. Listen, last year coming in, Ron Rivera and the Norv Turner, the offensive coordinator, basically telegraphed what they wanted to do with Christian McCaffrey. They came in and said he's going to be a bell cow. We're going to do it. We weren't quite sure. And then what happened? Boom, they did it. He was in on 96% of the team's snaps last year. To protect Cam, they can continue to run the ball consistently and basically treat Christian McCaffrey as the number one wide receiver on this team. He led the league in targets with 122. He led the league in receptions with 108. He had 874 receiving yards, all from the running back position, all best in the NFL from the running back position. So do you have any qualms there it is. There it is. If that picture doesn't make you want to draft him number one overall, then you must have the picture of Saquon's quads up. But other than that,
Chelsea and I have this as our screensaver.
Yeah. Amen. Yeah, we started that we sent her down that image hole and she never came back. We're kind of worried.
I loved it. I was like, yeah,
end
girl,
up
I hear you.
We might need to get a new manager in. So, yeah, Christian McCaffrey, stud. We like him there. I think the big debate this year, which we'll find especially in PPR formats, is AK, Alvin Kamara. We'll talk about him next. But Alvin Kamara or Christian McCaffrey. And for me, I'm really just going off of pure talent and specialness, and that's why I will have Kamara ahead. But you're really splitting hairs, especially with how much of guaranteed work we could see Christian McCaffrey having.
Right,
I mean,
exactly.
They didn't draft anybody to replace him. They obviously
No.
picked up Elijah Holyfield as an undrafted free agent, but not a lot of work done around him to make him not the number one threat he was last year.
Right. And I love Christian McCaffrey. And if there's anything, because I've mostly agreed with your rankings here, the one thing that I might flip around is actually switching Christian McCaffrey with Melvin Gordon. But it is such a fine line.
Right.
But you have it in PPR. In PPR, he's perfect at number 4. And then leave Melvin Gordon at number 5. But in a standard format, you might want to think about switching those. But wow, when you're looking at the first top 5 running backs, there is a ton of room here. And again, I would even, this is such a, I don't want to call it homer because I'm not from Arizona, but I would actually move David Johnson up ahead of Melvin Gordon simply because his potential, not because of history.
Right.
So I don't know, but yeah, I really like Christian McCaffrey. There's not much, especially in PPR. It's like, well, yeah.
I don't want to beat
whatever.
a dead horse, but like we're talking about David Johnson here, CMC there. Once again, such a talented first round.
Yes,
I think we're seeing
absolutely.
that. I think we're going to see a lot of happy owners come away from their drafts going, I got my guy, I got my guy, I got my second guy, and I'm still really happy. So
yeah, and Brad Schmill 23 says he's going to take him over Kamara, especially. Well, in fantasy, I think we're talking about fantasy, unless we're talking about a different kind of fantasy, Brad. You keep it clean here. You keep it clean
you're
here
the
on
one
the
throwing
IG
the
Live.
screensaver up there.
You keep it clean here on the
You
IG
inspired
Live.
the Whisper Nation to get a little hot and heavy here.
I hope so. Hey, why not? Let's keep things spicy.
That's right. We know you always do. We're going to move on to Alvin Kamara, though. He's our number 3 ranked PPR running back. And if, last year we saw a glimpse of what he could be without Mark Ingram, and they basically said, no, we don't need Mark Ingram anymore. We'll take Latavius Murray for much cheaper because he's much less talented. So here we go. Sean Payton can finally fully take the wheels off like he did last year. I think back to that first 4 weeks without Mark Ingram, and especially that game against the New York Giants, 3 touchdowns, just took him to town. I love Alvin Kamara. He had the highest average depth of target of any RB, and we're talking about by a lot. He had 1.9 yards per target. So every time he caught the ball, he was at least 2 yards down the field. That's insane. It doesn't happen for running backs. He is just a very special and highly efficient running back. Anything that you want to add here on Alvin Kamara for the Whisper Nation?
I mean, no. I mean, the top 1 through 3, I mean, there's not much to add. I love Alvin Kamara. In fact, I was talking to somebody who I hope they're not actually going to re-watch this, because he was telling me, he's like, oh, my God, they got rid of Ingram and added Latavius Murray. Draft stock down. Like, are you – yeah. Draft
you must play
terrible.
in a league with him, huh?
Yeah. I've actually heard people, more than one person, say this about how it's going to completely detriment Alvin Kamara. Like, what are you talking about? This is the greatest thing to happen to Alvin Kamara since being born. This is awesome.
Yeah, it's like sometimes – yeah. Sometimes we got to fight that urge to be right with these people and just let them draft accordingly because we're going to reap the benefits, right?
Yeah. All right, I'm toasty. I'm putting my hair up. Sorry, Whisper Nation, you get to see my giant forehead. But it's hot.
It's not Peyton Manning. It's not Peyton Manning big, but
it's pretty dang close. But you know what's funny is we haven't done a live in forever, so it's actually still daylight out here in Florida because we've had the time change.
Oh yeah. Days
are getting longer. So, and it is a disgusting, humid, love bugs, gross everywhere. Oh, hi. See, I should start my blind joke.
Hold on, I'm being blinded, yeah.
It's way too toasty. Way too toasty. My fire is not
worries.
Real.
Hey, you're the talent here. We let you do what you want. So
thanks.
Moving on to our number 2, speaking of talent, Ezekiel Elliott is no shortage of talent. I mean, this guy had more carries than any other running back by 40 carries. So this is unreal. So, of course, he's up here in PPR, even though he's not one of the better receiving backs. He gets receiving work, and he's increased it every year. So we talk about what scares people away from Zeke. People are saying, Saquon over Zeke, Saquon over Zeke. And I get it. I get why you would. The usage for Saquon was intense. But if you're going to pair Zeke against Saquon, you're going to look at all these years of increased usage, and that's what Zeke has versus just the 1 year for Saquon. And then the other concern people want to tell me online is, what about Amari Cooper? Well, you're going to try and tell me that Amari Cooper stole some work from Zeke, but it was actually the opposite. We look at catches per game, 5.1 per game on the year last year. He averaged 6.7 per game with Cooper. So the only reason his catches were down to 5 on the year were for the games without Cooper. So Cooper opened up more work for Zeke in the offense. Right. I think that excuse is null and void, and there's really nothing you can do to convince me not to go with Zeke. I really had to fight Johnny tooth and nail on this ranking. I really wanted Zeke as number 1, but we've got Zeke at number 2, and once again, I think you're splitting hairs.
It is splitting hairs, and whoever wants to come up with the whole Amari Cooper is going to take away, touch it. No, you have a strong running game when you have downfield threats. I mean, yep. This is kind of beginner's football 101. So let them believe it.
Yeah.
Let them believe it.
Once again. And then finally, we'll round out our top 10 here with our number 1 running back, Saquon Barkley.
Oh, Saquon's all the way.
Yes, this guy is a beast. We know the concern here will be the OBJ factor. We did a graphic earlier this year about, the dip in points per game for Saquon without OBJ. So on the flip side of what we were just talking about with Cooper and Zeke, OBJ seemed to positively affect Saquon's usage. And so are you concerned with OBJ going, or do you think that the Giants did just enough in getting Tate to help this offense move enough to keep Saquon as a number 1 option?
I honestly don't believe that OBJ is going to have as much of a factor, if any, leaving at all. There's a couple interesting things about Saquon, which makes me want to side with you over Johnny on wanting to put him at number 2 because of his potential. This quarterback that they picked up, who I was like, who? As soon as it was announced in the draft, I'm like, Daniel Jones? Who is this person? I'm like, what? So I don't even understand that waste of a draft pick by Gettleman, who is probably going to be burned at the stake in New York pretty soon. I don't even know. But let's say he does get a bunch of touches.
What is up with the state of New York and their front offices right now?
I think they need to go find their place of zen and peace and harness their chi and get their stuff worked out. I mean, I could give them some pointers.
If I'm Kevin Durant and I'm thinking about going to New York, I wouldn't be going to New York right now.
I know, there's something in the water, man. There's something in the water. But let's say that Daniel Jones, that's his name, right? That's how much I know about this guy.
That is him, yes.
Whatever. Yeah. David, Daniel, Duamas, I don't even know. But yeah, so let's say he starts. He's, we don't really know too much about him. He was great at Duke. Yeah, blah, blah, blah. Manning disciple. But, if they can use Saquon Barkley correctly, like they should have used David Johnson in Arizona, when they don't really have an amazing offensive line and then a new rookie quarterback and just dump it off to Saquon, who has proved that he has very capable hands as well as very capable quads, then I think no matter what happens with him in the quarterback situation, he's going to be okay. So really that is what concerns me more as opposed to the downfield threat, because you still have Sterling Shepard. You still have the new addition of Golden Tate, which I'm very interested in. I'm very interested to see how that happens. And you know what? Eli Manning still needs help. So do I think Zeke might usurp him in points? Yeah, I think he might. I think he will finish ahead of Saquon Barkley. But then, no, I don't. Now that I say that, it doesn't sound right as soon as it comes out of my mouth. I don't know. Like you said, it's splitting hairs. But I don't worry about OBJ.
It's too tough. We're not going to lose a bunch of hair over it in May. I think as we get closer to August,
I have lots of hair to lose over it. It's very
I have lots of hair to use. It's just turning gray. So probably from a lot of these indecisions at the top of these rankings. So
the struggle is real, man.
It really is. You're diving into these numbers, and everything looks so good. You can't have them all, unfortunately. It's not like Pokemon. But I would love to draft a lot of these guys.
Yeah.
But we want to know what you think, Whisper Nation. Get in those comments. Check this video out. It'll be up on YouTube if you missed any of it. And like always, you can catch Stepmom Lauren on any of her social platforms. That's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, at Stepmom Lauren. She is great. She is fantastic. She writes for the Fantasy Footballers and for Fake Pigskin. She's repping her Blues. And she is also going to be writing for us as well. And we appreciate her time. Thank you so much for coming on here. And we'll talk to you next time. Peace
Thank
out,
you so
Whisper
much,
Nation.
Travis. Love you
You got
guys.
it.
Mwah.
Peace.